You get a perm.
Get a perm.
Is there a topic?
That's like
I don't know. We just do this.
His channel.
Is Bax Shots the topic?
I will speak with live.
How many you
Live.
okay.
First stream.
Oh, we're live.
We're live.
Sorry,
My mom
TikTok,
misses you.
Instagram.
All right.
We're all
Look
over
at
the
my
place.
mom's bro.
Can we get a link to the
Who can drink
YouTube live so we can share it on our socials?
I just shared his actual page.
We asked people what they think about it. I'm impressed. I saw rich chocolate.
I don't have
That one is, I'm not gonna lie, gourmet chocolate's better.
What's the best rap range from this group?
I don't know what Bax. Oh, Bax talking to his live. I was like, what are you talking about gourmet chocolate over here for?
You like downside? I saw
Three lives or just two lives?
It's not bad.
What does T-Net think? The chocolate?
I don't know actually.
Gourmet chocolate is
I
actually.
think I've only had like the birthday cake and the vanilla.
Birthday cake. How was that?
Sorry, wait, is it not birthday cake?
Is it fruity? You're talking about
Oh, Fruity Pebbles. Blue and red sprinkles.
No
Same
grape
thing.
orange cream? No, not right now. We were supposed to have 5 flavors, but W manufacturer. Are you? My dad maybe.
Okay, so I'm thinking the way that we run this in general is Bax has got his live going. There's a live going there. There's a live going there. If you guys see like a topic that's interesting, just shoot it out to us. So anybody who's listening in on the lives, and you guys have like interesting topics that you guys want us to discuss, just let us know what they are,
Let us know.
and we'll do a roundtable on it. Give you guys everybody's perspective.
Oh, are you saying we're gonna get some questions from the viewers?
Yeah,
We got 3
and
lives.
it doesn't have to be fitness related. It could be anything.
Doesn't have to be fitness related either.
It could be whatever you
What do
guys
want
want.
Potter to be?
Oh, exactly. Keep it interesting, guys.
Which Echo Freak is the best pump?
What's
probably
that?
Like,
Max
is it
Anybody has their
Diabolic.
phone on them? So you can like
So many
put
like
the link somewhere, like on their pages and stuff.
Yeah, I just posted it.
W bro Harper WW.
I can send
Are you delivering to UK? No, there's no international delivery.
Somebody's gonna
Yeah,
ask.
it's
like,
crazy.
crazy.
I'm watching myself.
here.
I'm watching myself on Bax's live right now. It's like 6 seconds of time restriction.
Please ask a productive question. You know what I mean? Just is edging can I edge to this podcast? So you know how the conversation.
I might have to send you
goes.
some bread.
Yeah.
Are you delivering to
I'll be
UK?
asking just like
Guarantee every video there's
Yes,
yes,
bro, you see
video.
We are recording a group conversation
All right.
podcast at the EchoCast. We're live streaming it on TF's YouTube channel and his TikTok and Bax's TikTok. So if you want to come ask us questions, we'll answer them live. Try not to get too out of pocket. Look forward to talking to you.
And we got any interesting questions coming across?
Like TikTok
Who's the
live.
most jacked person in the room? Just to get started.
Mark.
One of those.
Mark is easily the most jacked person here. Now, outside of him, who's the most jacked?
I know it's not me.
It's between you two.
Yeah.
Nah, it's me enough.
If we're talking arm size, definitely this guy.
He's being humble.
This guy.
Joel, just say yourself, all right?
Are you
Let's
saying-
just call it done.
Let's see real. Come on now.
Yeah, and if you guys haven't already met him, this is EJ. He's possibly going to be a new member of Echo. We're not sure yet. We're still trying to figure things out. But yeah, if you guys haven't met EJ yet, he's the guy who competed against me at my last show.
Yep.
And I beat him. You know, no big deal. No big
I
deal.
mean, we got to run it back one day. One day.
But let's put it this way: if he was 2 or 3% leaner, it would have been hands down for him.
Unreasonably jacked.
Yes, this guy is a phenom. So you guys have seen what he looks like, but he's only gonna get crazier from here.
This is gonna be fun if Im just drops us questions from the live.
Oh,
we
yeah.
just all talk about it. This is gonna be a good conversation.
So there's a talk about spinal engine theory. I don't know what that means.
Spinal engine theory?
Yeah.
We're getting trolled by.
Am I at the right table?
Oh yeah, you got
Spinal engine. All right, now I gotta Google it.
Come on, guys, you got a big round table here. Ask some interesting topics.
So Joel still plays soccer. Joel, do you still play soccer?
Once in a while, but it's not like I don't play in any leagues or anything like that. People want me to go kick about, I will, but that's about it.
I have a good question that's usually good for roundtable, which is like, what is your hot take? What is something that you believe to be true that most people would disagree with you on?
Oh,
That's a really good question.
That's a good question.
okay.
That might give me canned. No, I'm just kidding. I'm gonna say the same thing.
So I don't know how hot of a take it is, to be completely honest. but I think that there's a bigger role that gets played in overall nutrient density when it comes to food and muscular development overall than a lot of people give it credit for. So like the whole, like if it fits your macros movement is like really big, and like people are like, oh, as long as it's like relatively clean, but they don't focus on the actual nutrients within the food itself. And I think overall, just from what I've noticed in my overall performance in the gym and the people that I've worked with, their ability to cut and maintain muscle while cutting, it's always 10 times better when we actually focus on the types of foods they're eating and not just, because like a lot of people go, oh yeah, obviously processed versus non-processed, like that's all that matters. Like it's like if it's non-processed and it's whole foods, you're good. But like if you actually focus even within that deeper, like a lot of times people are like, oh yeah, chicken, egg whites, tuna, like those are their go-tos when they come to like cutting and stuff like that. I hardly ever use those foods when I cut with clients, and they have better performance in the gym. They get better, like they're still maintaining good pumps even when they're like getting close to stage ready. They're still like getting better sleep, like everything's just optimized better. And because of that, I think that they maintain muscle better when they actually have that nutrient density in their diet leading into show. So it might not necessarily be something where when you're bulking, it makes as big of a difference, but when you're in that depleted state, every little piece matters.
Yeah, I think there's an evolution that that takes place in like most people's fitness journey. Of for me, I've been a zealot on other sides of the spectrum. I've been a zealot for if it fits your macros, and like zealot meaning I would die on the hill that was the way to do it, right, and that was the best way. But I remember when I went through my weight loss transformation, I did the if it fits your macros approach, and what I found was I was consistently feeling deprived as a result of trying to fit those foods in. Because I was, oh, I have 600 calories, I can eat Oreos, but I didn't get any satiety out of it. So I started to realize, to your point about nutrient density, like, yeah, the macronutrients fuel us and build us, but how we operate on a literal cellular level comes down to the vitamins and the minerals that we intake. And beef and whole eggs and some foods like that are going to contain those micronutrients that help us fire on a cellular level, as opposed to poultry and egg whites. And that's it's amazing the transition that people feel when you're coaching them, when they shift from, well, I've been eating chicken and broccoli and rice because I thought that's what it took. So,
Right.
no, I'm going to have you eat foods that you probably thought were quote unquote unhealthy or not good for the journey. And they're sharper in the gym, they're sharper at work, they sleep better. It really is fascinating. So I've opted on the side of, I would push anybody who dies on the IIFYM hill to just eat whole foods and shift away from the bro diet and go for the red meat and the eggs. I totally agree.
Yeah.
I think to carry on with that too is like when I did my weight loss, like I had days where I would eat a chocolate protein cake all day long. It fit my macros, I get my calories in, I get my protein in. But you finish that cake, I'm still hungry.
Yeah.
Like I got no fiber in me, I got no micronutrients whatsoever. They lack all the nutrients that you need to feel full and to feel good. So I don't know about the muscle density. I'm a true blue idiot right here. I don't know anything with that. But I know that when I would have a day where I would eat, yogurt and fruit, or I'd have some steak at the end of it, or I'd have, some chicken and eggs for breakfast or something like that, I felt a whole hell of a lot better than I did when I did one of my protein desserts.
Right.
Protein desserts, I think, are great for adherence, for keeping you on your diet and making you feel like you're not depriving yourself. But I do think there is something to be said of make it fit your macros, but there's a good, better, and best way of doing things. And I think the best way is get yourself some good whole foods, get some steak, get a baked potato, things like that.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Well, the main difference that I noticed when I had people switch over from one to the other is they could operate substantially better on a lot less calories of nutrient dense foods than if they were trying to do those same level of calories with the non-nutrient dense foods. So I had this woman come to me and she was a little bit behind when it came to her prep, and she wanted to get lean for a show. And she's like, yeah, it's been really tough. Like I'm feeling rough. Like, and I'm not recommending these types of calories for anybody, but she was on 1,200 calories when she came to me, and she was still a little bit behind for a show. And she was doing everything through like we talked about, like egg whites, chicken, tuna, whatever. And I was like, okay, we're going to switch you over to more nutrient density, but because you're a bit behind, we're actually going to even lower your calories even more. Mm-hmm. And she was feeling really rough on this 1,200 calories, and she thought it was the calorie amount. I said, I don't think it is, but keep me updated. Like I made sure that she kept me updated through the entire process. She started hitting PRs within the next couple weeks, sleeping better. She was like 2 months out at that point, and she got leaner faster, but she was on 300 less calories, hitting PRs in the gym, sleeping better, feeling better, went into show feeling good. And it was like, and all we did was we just switched around. Like we upped her fats a little bit and we focused a little bit more on the nutrient side of things. And she was just able to, I mean, and I know I'm not recommending this for anybody under 1,000 calories. She was able to just perform the best that she had performed for the last like 3 or 4 months that she'd been on prep.
So I wanna expand on that question you asked, two different topic, but I think something that'll be valuable. We talked about this in the training session today of we'll make the same type of video a lot because no matter how many times you or me talk about how to calculate your intake, how to lose body fat, right? You do a great job of explaining your transformation, Baxter, but there will always be someone who asks about the basics, again, because there's someone who finds this and doesn't know. So when we talk about something that's basic to us, nutrient density, I'm curious of what do y'all's diets look like when you go through specifically a cutting phase, given there's probably a lot of people watching this who maybe are struggling on the diet 21 days into the new year. I have a way that I approach it. I think it's similar to the way that Bax approaches it, that you approach it. So can we chat about that a little bit? Like what our diets look like just at a high level?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'll let somebody else go because I've talked a lot already. Go ahead, Max.
Yeah, I would say that fitness is a big part of my life, but there's so many other parts of my life that I can't let it consume my entire life, which means I have to find the foods that I can eat, that I enjoy consistently, that have the nutrient density, like we said, which for me is, a substantial amount of whole eggs, grass-fed beef and steak. And I don't restrict carbs. It's just not something that I tend to like that much. So I'll have like bagels here or like tortillas, but rarely do I have even like a big portion of either rice or some kind of starch. And then fruits. I try and get some like pickled onions or different things like that. But really, it's just foods. It's funny because I posted a video talking about my meals, and somebody was like, "That's not really cooking so much as it is assembling." And I'm like, that's kind of honestly what, if you're dealing with whole foods, it almost is assembling. Like it doesn't take crazy prep to cook a steak. And that allows me to eat like 2 big meals a day, feel great throughout the entire day, do everything I need to, and I don't even think about it, right? I'm not worried about like micro meals throughout the day, and I'm not worried about like crashing and all those things. It's just what works for me. But that's just kind of how and I don't even look into the science all that much. It's just kind of what I found worked for me.
Yeah. Mark, what about you? Let's say you're 16 weeks out.
Okay.
You're on prep. What does it look like?
I think when it comes down to cutting, I mean, definitely incorporating higher volume, lower calorie dense foods, like increasing your veggies. So say, for example, you take a big ass, excuse me. I need to watch myself here.
A large.
You take a very large bowl, you fill it up with a ton of vegetables. And that alone compared to if you were to eat something that's very high in calories. So say, for example, you get a Ferrero Rocher chocolate. Everybody knows what that is. Can you honestly be happy eating just one?
No.
No, but that one is like 70 calories. So you can easily consume 700 calories worth of Ferrero Rocher chocolate compared to if you get a super large bowl of vegetables, and you barely be making a dent. So combining things with lean protein, you add that onto the fact that you're going to expand your stomach, and you're going to be fuller for a given period of time as compared to if you eat those types of foods that I mentioned. An Oreo, nobody opens an Oreo pack and eats just like one, unless you're an absolute psychopath. But a lot of people don't exactly realize they have a hard time losing weight, and they'll say something like, "Well, I don't eat a lot," so I go ahead and I watch how they eat, and they'll do something like, "Well, I eat a lot of pistachios." Okay, do you understand that there's a lot of fat in there? There's 9 calories per gram, and without even realizing it, you may not be eating a lot, but you're eating a lot of calories. Okay, you go to Starbucks, you get a crazy drink. It's not a coffee at that point. Okay, it's a whole dessert, and you're putting all these sorts of things inside. It's not a coffee. You're easily drinking 1,000 calories worth of coffee per se, and incorporate things that you love eating. So say, for example, one of the things I love eating, especially during the starting points of the cut, is Skittles, because a Skittle pack is 250 calories, right? So say, for example, you eat a pretty significant salad bowl with a lot of chicken and everything else and all the protein. So your stomach is a little bit expanded, and you're like, I want a little bit of a sweet tooth. 250 calories is odds are it's probably not going to hurt you. I mean, does anybody agree?
That's a pretty good sweet
right?
tooth.
Skittles, right? You just pick on it, like as compared to like a chocolate bar, you get in, it's gone. But with Skittles, you have to kind of like keep picking inside of the bag, and it takes a little bit of time. So that's what I find. And energy drinks, things like this can honestly help when it comes to losing weight, because when you're drinking like these caffeine drinks, It's 10 calories in a can. Is 10 calories going to hurt you? No.
Yeah.
And it keeps you full for a little bit of a longer time. But eventually, as you reach to a certain point, the sharper you look, it's pretty much inevitable at that point.
Yeah, as a former fatty, not to play too much on your name, as a former fatty, I think it's for people who are trying to lose weight. I look at dieting as how many bites can I get out of a meal, and then am I hitting the three main points that I think really work on our satiety or our fullness, which is your leptin and your ghrelin at a hormonal level, right? Leptin makes us full, ghrelin makes us hungry. When ghrelin's up, we're hungry, and our stretch receptors in our stomach. So if I can eat high volume meals with lots of bites because I can eat a lot of food, I'll take the meal that I bulk with, which is a protein source and a rice, and I'll add 3 handfuls of lettuce, and I've tripled the bites. But I haven't increased the caloric volume of the food, to your point. So I think, to me, getting fit is all about raising your awareness around like how certain foods make you feel and how the caloric impact they have on you and your caloric budget for the day. So, Eric, what does your intake look like?
My intake, I'm gonna be completely honest. In terms of nutrition, I don't know much. I don't know anything.
And he looks like that.
No, seriously. When I competed against TNF, before I competed against him, I had like 5 guys. Like 3 days before the show, I was eating whatever, and I still looked great. I had God-given genetics. I'm just being completely honest. I'm hearing everything they're talking about, and it doesn't make sense. They're talking about nutrient density food. I'm not trying to sound bogus. I'm not trying to sound funny. I don't know what any of that means. That's why I'm working with TNF. Seriously, he's helping me with nutrition. I don't know pretty much how to cut. I know you got to eat a little bit less, but at the same time, you eat one Oreo, that's 7 calories. Like, come on now, that's kind of tough. So I'm pretty much learning everything. Black coffee, chewing gum, that's one of my best friends. Seriously, because every time I get hungry, it's like I'm not really hungry, but I want to chew on something. So what I do? Chew gum. Not too bad.
That's
black coffee. Cucumbers, zucchini. He just put me on to that. Great substance. Let me see what else. I'm not gonna lie. When you start leaning out, you get mad. I get mad every single day. Every time I go to the grocery store, I be mad. I be seeing everybody happy. I hear all the buggies. I see people putting all stuff in. I get the same stuff every single day. It is so basic, so boring. Then you gotta cook every day. I'm like, then you gotta clean every day. Then when you go to sleep, you're hungry. Everybody's trying to talk to you. You don't want to talk. And so it's just like it's a grind. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not even getting ready for a competition, but he has me on a nutrition plan. I've been mad every day. Blessed, but mad. But when this is over though, it's just like it's worth it though. I'll be looking in the mirror and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is what I'm turning into. And so yeah.
So, and that's an interesting point that EJ brings up because, so what I want the audience to understand is there's a difference between weight loss for the purpose of health and weight loss for the purpose of getting ready for a show or something like that. So like EJ's talking about the fact that like, he's like a little bit angry, like a little bit irritated, and that's a hormonal response. And like, that is pretty normal for people when they're cutting, but especially normal when you're starting to get to this point where you're getting close to that 10%, 9%, 8%. Like no matter what, no matter who you are not putting yourself in a healthy state once you start getting to a certain level of body fat percentage that's lean. So if you're somebody who's 25% body fat and you're cutting and you're having like these insane struggles while at 25% body fat, those are things that you want to figure out what is causing those issues right away. Because those are things that should not be happening when your body fat is outside of a range that is healthy. But if it's happening when you're down getting closer to a show prep or something like that, it's just something you got to deal with. It's like show prep is a completely different beast from just getting your overall health in order. And so when he's talking about this, like he's talking about the fact that he's not necessarily prepping for a show. He was 200 pounds at our show and 200 pounds and wasn't lean at the time. And he's getting leaner and staying at 200 pounds. He's recomping right now. So technically he is prepping for a show. We just haven't pulled the trigger on when the show is going to be. So I don't want you guys to think it's like he's just hungry all the time despite not prepping. He is prepping. It's just a longer drawn out prep. And we're eking some extra gains out of him before we actually pull the trigger to go to stage.
Pretty crazy that you're recomping at this point in your track with the way your physique is. It's a testament to the low intensity or the low volume, high intensity training style and adjusting your nutrition a little bit, it's amazing what massive impacts those little tweaks can have. But to the point of diet, you did an absolutely
Lower volume.
lower volume.
Careful.
Sorry, not
You'll
lower
you'll get
volume.
people coming in
You're
with
right.
their
Not on your
Menser
life.
style, one set per week.
Not on your life. You're gonna start calling you Mincer and telling you you're
Please.
wrong. You just went through a biblical cut. The last time I saw you, you had like veins in your legs and shit was crazy.
Yeah.
What did you do to get there?
That was more of like a bodybuilding like prep style. It was I was on a pretty strict meal plan. It was just a lot of ground turkey. I obviously had like my healthy fats in there as well. I had like a meal with ground beef, avocado, stuff like that. It was like really nutrient dense foods, so like keeping my protein high as well. But yeah, it was that low calories and a lot of cardio. That's what it was. Like that wasn't like the point that I got to, like he said, was not a healthy state at all. Like I felt terrible. I remember we were at a photo shoot, and we were like, it was when I was getting close to the end of it, and he was near his show, and we were both pretty
Miserable.
very miserable. It's not a good time when you're that lean. I'm telling you, it is not a good time. But
That's important to
Yeah.
tell the people that listen to you. They see you. Anything done to the extreme end of a spectrum is not healthy, right?
yeah,
Like,
no.
lifting weights healthy. Being a bodybuilder sometimes not healthy. Running a little bit probably healthy. Being an endurance runner probably not healthy.
But the important thing is, if you're in an unhealthy state and you get towards a healthy state, you will feel so much better.
Yeah.
I don't want it to seem like losing weight is holistically you're going to become angry. Eating better holistically you're going to become angry. If you are overweight or unathletic, doing that will make you feel so much better.
There's a clear difference from how you feel. Like I was almost 300 pounds. Like how I feel now compared to then. Even just like day-to-day tasks, like putting on socks. Like it was literally a struggle.
Everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything. I mean, like you said, like I was 275 pounds, your knees hurt, your back hurt. I was sick probably once a month because my immune system was so poor. I had acid reflux. Like I was waking up in the middle of the night with just that burn in my throat. Just literally every single aspect of your life when you're that unhealthy, it changes completely. So like these guys are talking about, doing bodybuilding and getting that low on body fat and you having a hormonal response. Yeah, you're not going to feel good when you ain't got body fat. Your body needs body fat on you. But when you got too much, you're going to have the exact inverse of it. It's like Michael said, the extreme ends of any spectrum in life is not good. It's all about finding that balance of getting yourself to a healthy point. That's what you
It's a J curve is what it is.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
exactly what it is.
Joel, we got a good question while you're on that topic. Somebody asked, what body fat range would you recommend a normie lifter to hover around for good muscle gains or general health?
So typically what I say to people is if you are eating an overall like healthy diet, like if you're eating, and when I say a healthy diet, I'm not referring to the 80-20 rule, like where people are like 80% good, 20% unhealthy. I'm talking like a legitimately good, clean diet. If you cannot get your hunger in check on that good, clean diet, you probably are staying a little bit too lean. And if you're like, sitting here like 26, 27, 28% body fat saying that, you probably just haven't done it for long enough. Like if you're legitimately eating a good assortment of fruits, vegetables, meats, stuff like that, and we're talking without sauces, not adding in a bunch of other stuff, and you can't get full, and you're like somewhere in like the low teens or like what you think is low teens or even sub 10, like you're probably not in a good state for anabolism. So once you can get those things in order, let your body settle out and you start to feel, okay, like this amount of calories that I'm on, I'm feeling good. My sleep is good. My recovery is good. My lift sessions are good. Then you're going to be in a good state to start building slowly. And I think what happens a lot of the time is people eat, like they do that 80-20 thing. And it's like, okay, but if you're doing the 80-20 and you're not full, maybe you're just leaning on the 20 a little bit too hard.
Yeah, maybe it's 25 or 30.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's why I don't like those percentages that people do, because then I see people like, well, I couldn't get full, I couldn't feel good, and they're walking around like 25, 26, 27% body fat. I'm like, if that's the case, you probably were just eating more junk than you realized.
Yeah.
Very few people are going to feel good eating good, high quality food while being at anything above 25% body fat. Like I think for me, like I tried to stay lean for a little bit long. And finally, when I decided like, okay, you know what, I need to put on a little bit more body fat, started to feel a little bit better. And like now I can comfortably eat at around maintenance with good high quality food. And if I wanted to, I could stay here. Like I'm going to continue to like try to put on size and stuff like that. But when you get to that state where you can kind of level out on good high quality food, you're probably going to be in a good overall state.
A lot of the time people screw these things up. I've spoken about it plenty of times, but people want to like bulk when they're like carrying a lot of body fat at that point. And then when I look at their nutrition, because I just look at, okay, show me what they're eating. And they're just eating like tons of McDonald's and like double quarter pounders and like cinnamon toast crunch. And their body fat is already just like way too high. Why are you bulking?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, they're like, well, I'm not full. I'm not full. It's like, of course you're not.
No.
Yeah.
These foods are not meant to make you full.
No, they're
They're meant to
engineered
keep
do the
you coming
opposite.
back.
Yeah, I think it's important to note, like, it always comes back to real food. Like I say it in my videos, if it grew on the ground, grew on a tree, or had a mom and dad, eat a lot of it. Like eat animals, eat fruits, eat vegetables. And if you eat that way, your body weight will hit some sort of a set point. So to say to the individual who asked the question, you'll be healthy at 12%. I'm more comfortable as a naturally larger appetite guy, like 13 or 14% body fat, while you, Bax, came from being a thin guy. It may be easier for you to sit leaner because you just don't have the same sort of appetite response. But if the average person, we're talking about law of averages here, he said normie lifter. That's important to point out. He's not trying to do anything crazy. If you hit a gram per pound of body weight in protein, you eat adequate red meat, adequate lean protein, you eat real food, your satiety will self-regulate. And if it's not self-regulating, you're probably eating a little bit too much processed food.
Yeah,
It really is simple.
So what he's saying is your body is a temple.
Yeah, treat it as such.
Treat it as such.
I've got a little bit of a controversial take. Is there any great questions that came through yet? Because if not, he's got a good question that we can use as an anchor.
There's a lot of inappropriate ones, so
Come on, guys.
I specifically said to not get out of pocket.
There's somebody asked, hey guys, just got here. What are your thoughts on somebody, 15-year-old cutting, been training for 2.5 years? When is a good time to start cutting?
At 15?
Did you say he's 15 years old?
Yeah, but it's just like how does he look? If he's like a very overweight 15-year-old kid,
Right.
then yes, absolutely lose weight.
Okay,
So
ask him give him what's his height and weight.
Yeah,
If
exactly.
you ask him that.
yeah.
If we kept it simple, I would say if you're under the age of 18 and you're not fat, you should just focus on eating foods and lifting weights and sleeping. Just be a kid.
I agree.
Don't worry too much about
Yeah,
food.
such nitpicky details.
Well,
like relax.
especially if you're still going through puberty at that age, you might be.
6 feet, 170 pounds.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Don't
So
when you're
he
20,
he has no
cut
need
when you're
to.
20.
6 foot, no 7, no.
Yeah.
Well, 17% body fat.
At that point in
Yeah.
time in your life, you're the most anabolic you're ever going
Let's
to be.
chill.
Yeah,
It's,
you know,
it's not it's not a time for him to be cutting. If he was and let's put it this way, let's say so like there are some people who at 6 foot 170 could be in the category of what you could call skinny fat. That is a possibility, but even in that state, you're not at such a large size that it's going to be extremely detrimental for your health to stay at that weight at least. So at the very least, staying at that weight would be a good idea. I would obviously you can continue to put on size too if he wants to, but but there's no reason for that person to cut. Especially he said, how old was he?
15.
15. You can very comfortably, and I know a lot of people hear me talk about how recomping isn't as effective as going through like lean bulking and cutting phases, which is true. But the thing is, in your first few years of lifting, particularly, recomping is, you can do it very, very easily. You can recomp in your first few years of lifting. There's no
15.
at this point, you have so much testosterone coursing through your veins that you're just by the nature of being in the gym, you're going to start losing some body fat and putting on some muscle, assuming your calorie intake isn't absolutely through the roof.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing that happens that I didn't grow up with. There's a bigger point here. A 15-year-old asking that question. When I grew up, there was not Instagram. There wasn't an Instagram fitness world, and this was just 10 years ago, 11 years ago. I was 15, but Instagram wasn't what it was. It was pictures of your dog and your breakfast. It wasn't what it is now, and it's interesting to hear a 15-year-old be concerned with that. When I hear a kid that reaches out to me and says, I had a girl who DM'd me and said, I'm 13 years old. I hate the way I look. I want to cut. It's like, you're a kid. Please focus on being a kid.
Yes.
Eat good food. Go lift weights if you want to. Go outside and just focus on taking care of yourself and worry about the fine details after you vote in your first election.
That's right.
Then we can talk about it.
You and I on our solo podcast discussed broadening your time horizon. And when you're 15, hopefully you'll be lifting until you're 65, right? It's something that you should keep forever. And so you may want the abs in 6 months. If they come in a year or 18 months, that'll be fine. I promise you, you'll still look great. You'll still feel great. You need to broaden your time horizon. This is not something that you need to fix immediately. And you definitely don't want to, for example, crash your naturally high testosterone levels by developing something that could be considered, I don't know what's I can say on here, but basically don't restrict your calories so much that you actually start eating into the benefits of being a teenage male, particularly.
Yeah, and Dylan O'Brien on the team has talked about in his content how he did that. He developed some disordered eating at a young age and actually went through a second puberty at the age of 20 or 19 because he finally understood what it meant to feed your body. He said, I just exploded. I put on 50 pounds in 14 months because he said he was eating 1,000 calories a day from 15 to 17.
Yeah.
And it destroyed his puberty process.
Yeah.
15 years old, I was thinking that's barbell cool.
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna bounce 175 off of my chest. You know what I
that's
mean?
hard to say.
That's all I was thinking. But like now, like kids are just trying to be so complex.
It's the age of social media too.
You
And it's
know?
kind of like you were saying too. Everybody wants these quick results. Like I want abs in 60 days. Well, good luck with that, bro, because it's not going to happen. Unfortunately, we all got to start looking at the long-term picture. And I think similar to what you said too, not looking at the extremes and just be healthy. Just like do the base, like you say this excellently. Do the big rocks first. Like get your calorie intake good, get your protein intake good, lift some weights. Once you get that for a year or so, okay, well then look at the big stuff.
Well,
Yeah.
speaking of the long term, I think one of the most interesting things that I get consistently on my platform is somebody who's 18 or 19 who will come into my platform and say it's not possible for somebody like me or somebody like EJ or this guy at one point in his life, like to be like, okay, well, like those things aren't possible naturally. And I take a look at their and I'll go to their profile and take a look at them. I'm like, you look 10 times better than I did at 18. I'm like, you don't even understand what your body is capable of. You like, I'm 11 years older than you.
Mm-hmm.
You've been lifting for a year and you look better than I did at 24.
Yeah.
It's like if you are consistent with your diet and your training for that amount of time, you're going to look better than I do at 29. Like you just will.
That's something we should go around the table and just talk about our training careers. That's as people who get probably a lot of questions about how to develop or how long X will take to build X body part. Insert here, like you've got insane triceps. When you do a side tricep pose, that shit is mad developed. Looks fantastic. You are huge. You are also huge. You've got an insane physique. You get a ton of fake natty accusations. You're a mountain. You've gone through an insane physique transformation. I was fat. Now I'm fit. I think it's important that everyone understands clearly where our training careers lie, to the tune of detaching yourself from the outcome and just doing the behaviors every day and the results coming. So like, how long have you been training somewhat seriously? How long has fitness been in your life?
Just like actually seriously, just over 2 years. This year, like the end of this year, it's gonna be 3. So yeah, it's been
When did you start your weight loss side of things?
right after, probably like 6 months after COVID ended.
Wow, that recent? You've made so much progress so fast. That's crazy. What about your?
In terms of taking it serious, January 2022 is when I really started training serious.
What did you do before that? What was serious like?
So all seriousness, I was focused on training for football. I was a football player before I became a bodybuilder. And so I was just focused on being athletic, working on my skills. I was a running back, but I couldn't catch. I didn't have vision, and so I was just trying to be elusive. I was strong, but I want to be able to run fast. I want to be able to say, like, if you took away my strength, how good am I? Because I was going to the collegiate level, and I was just like, there's going to be guys who are just as strong, just as bigger than me. And so I understand skills better bills. But then next thing you know, football didn't work out. And then I'm like, you know what? I got to get back into something. That didn't happen. I went through depression for 6 months. I fell at the gym. I gained to 243 pounds. I was fat. I was overweight. It doesn't seem like it, right? Crazy.
You were fat at one point?
Yes.
That's hard to believe.
I won't say like completely like
fat for you.
Yeah, for me. And I didn't have no development. I'm like, man, I got to turn this around. This is not how I want to turn out. The guy who peaked at high school and didn't do nothing with his life. And I wanted better for myself. And so I put God first. I worked extremely hard. In January 2022 is when I started turning everything around. So I went from 243 and now I'm walking around 200. So yeah.
Wow. And an important point here is 2 years of training, of 2 years of serious training. In the grand scheme of your fitness journeys, I know there's a lot of people under the age of 18 probably watching this right now. 2 years is a blink in a fitness journey. I mean, we're talking about when you do these things, you make the investment that you decide you're going to do this for forever. So you can't compare Joel's day 3,000 to your day 30 and wonder why there's a discrepancy in your physique and why you're not seeing it. It's because I've been doing this for 8 years and I probably could have done it in 4 had I taken it more seriously. You've been training for 8 years. You've been training for 5 to 10 years, right? Somewhere in that neighborhood.
6 years. So.
6 years. I mean, this is all, it's just so important to understand that the timeline is different. So broaden your horizons. But back to the point, Mark, what's your training career like?
Okay, so I started to take it a lot more seriously in 2016. So, because while I was in the Marines, as you rank up, you'd have a little bit more freedom to do what you want. So, before I was a corporal and getting close to sergeant, as a lance corporal, which was the 3rd rank in the Marines, I didn't really have that many freedoms because we were told we'd wake up in the morning, 5 in the morning, and then we'd start running like 5 miles, and then a lot of the time I would just show up and lift and eat whatever.
Mhm.
Like I'd go straight to like Popeyes right after I'd work out and just do a lot of random lifts. And then right when I ranked up higher, that's when I started to take a little bit more of my diet seriously, and then it went from there. But I think a lot of the time, people's problems is they're trying to focus on finding that end result. And I never looked at that. I just looked at like, man, I love going to the gym and pushing myself. And then and then eventually it became to the point where I love eating properly and making sure everything is on point. And I love just pushing myself. I don't look at like, man, I need to really develop this muscle group. I just go in thinking like I'm gonna absolutely just destroy myself and push myself beyond limits. I don't think, I need to grow my biceps this fast. Because when I stopped looking at those things, everything just started to click.
Mhm.
You need to have a genuine love to push yourself.
And the results come as a happy byproduct.
Take it one step at a time. If you're doing incline dumbbell presses with 50-pound dumbbells or 10, do 11 next time.
Mhm.
Focus on those things. If you keep focusing on like my chest is still flat, then you're gonna be a depressed mess because you're trying to look from a short-term standpoint. Enjoy going to the gym and going to the point where you're absolutely yourself.
Yeah. You gotta
Good
sit
job,
to yourself.
Barry.
Good job.
Good job.
Joel, what about you? You said somewhere in the neighborhood of 6?
Oh, I said 60, but you missed a little bit there. Anyways, no, like I started off as a soccer player, so like I've been training like my entire life. But as far as like once we started talking weights and stuff like that, that would have been high school. I did like little movements here and there, started incorporating like squats and deadlifts once in a while. But it was like probably from the time I was 15 to 22, like everything was supposed to be for soccer, and soccer players don't bench press.
Mhm.
Soccer players don't do bodybuilding style training. So like we don't do bicep curls, we don't do tricep extensions, stuff like that. So everything was supposed to be athletically oriented, which meant that I was never really overloading any movements. So like I was really, really good at push-ups, like insanely good. Like I would just knock out hundreds of push-ups at a time and like pull-ups, stuff like that. Like anything that was like body weight oriented, I was quite good at. But like I wasn't actually putting any load on my body, so I wasn't developing muscle. I was just really good endurance-wise.
Yeah.
And then it was like I got injured and decided to take a spring season off my junior year of college soccer. And I was like, you know what, like I need something to do with my time. So I was like, that was when I started like learning powerlifting and stuff like that. So it wasn't until I was 22 that I actually started like bench pressing, squatting, deadlifting, because that was what you're supposed to do, in my opinion at the time. And then I transitioned more into bodybuilding style stuff over time. But so I would say like if I was to condense everything down to like solid training, we're looking at like 5 to 6 years. If we're talking like just training in general, it's been a long time, very long time.
Yeah, over a decade.
Yeah.
Interesting. What about you, Bax?
Yeah, so I was like a very insecure, kind of socially awkward kid growing up. I distinctly remember I was running cross country and I fell and I broke my arm like really badly, and I just felt like frail. I felt like not a man. I was skinny, and so I decided I was going to start lifting. Then I had like tried every sport, just never was good at any of them. I wasn't aggressive enough, even like the slightest bit of aggression that you need to be like on a basketball court, didn't have it. And had a really good coach, started lifting sophomore year, like August of 2015, and have not gone like a consecutive 7 days without a workout since then. So like 8.5 years now. And honestly, like I think that fitness has been a huge part of my life, but it's not the biggest thing in my life. And so my training has been very kind of something that I can do every day. So I was talking to you about that when we were at the gym, but I work out 45 to 50 minutes a day. I don't push insanely hard. Honestly, I could probably look better than I do now after 8.5 years of lifting, but I think that it's a testament to the consistency will add up, because it's just, I will not skip a workout. I'll go in there even if it's 45 minutes. And I've done that for 8.5 years, and it adds up over time. And now people, look at me, and sure, it could be a physique that somebody could achieve quicker. But I even didn't take like creatine, no protein powder until very recently. And actually until I joined Echo Vision. And so, it was very much just getting in the gym and getting after it every single day, day after day for 8.5 years. That's like my whole training thing. I know very little about the science. I know very little about like optimal training.
Well, on that point right there, I just wanted to bring that up because like I'll have a lot of people that will reach out to me and they'll say, well, why is so-and-so so big when his training doesn't seem to be like completely optimized? And they're pointing at a guy who's like a big dude. He's like 35 years old. And he's been doing this since he was like 18. And I'm like, okay, like, look, like training in an optimized format will allow you to get from point A to point B quicker. It's like, but you can still make a ton of progress without optimizing every single detail if you're willing to put in hard work over long periods of time. You're gonna get something out of 17 years of hard training.
Yeah.
Or I shouldn't even say hard training, of like consistent training. Like assuming there's some level of progressive overload over time, yeah, you're gonna get a good muscular progress like this guy has.
One of my favorite, this is about more than just training, it's about life, but to the point of training is one of my favorite quotes of all time is 90% of extraordinary success can be boiled down to doing the obvious things for an extraordinary period of time. And the obvious things are just going to the gym, even if it's only for 30 or 45 minutes. There's probably 500 days where I've only had time to hit the floor and do 100 push-ups, but I've done 100 push-ups 1,000 times. And it's the obvious things of just keeping going and staying consistent with training. Is you said like I could have a better physique for 8 years, but you still have an insane physique, and it was because you just kept showing up. So the people who are worried about why is this training not super optimal, because he's been showing up for an extraordinary period of time and he's now successful. So that applies to training, that applies to building wealth, building your life. You just have to keep showing up, and most people stop showing up, and that's why they don't win. That's why they don't get the body or the life they want. Not to get motivational on you, but that's a really good example of like training is such a pure microcosm for life of you got to commit forever if you want to get the results that he has or he has. It's a lifelong investment.
And this is where I say analysis paralysis, and I keep saying this over and over again because people will focus on, say for example, we have a cake, but people will focus on that crumb, that one little crumb. They'll ask something like, what is the best like incline on the bench? They'll dwell on something like that for so long rather than putting in the action. What honestly feels the best for you, establish that, go at it. But when you focus on such like small details, you are constantly in this state of not making a decision. And that's why I'm very much against it. And yes, people like Joel, they understand, but they don't dwell on something and not take action.
Yeah.
Plenty of people who focus on these crumbs, they'll dwell on it, not take action, and not do anything altogether.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whoever says what's the best anything, I just go, don't worry about it.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Show up, and he Joel even mentioned it. Show up, train super hard, train harder next time. Train harder next time. It may not be a perfect approach, but it's gonna work better than you not being able to make a decision.
Yeah. Well, it's always funny to me when I get somebody, they'll see me do something in a workout and they'll be like, oh yeah, I'm putting this into my workout next time. And I'm like, okay, like I'm okay with the idea of like tweaking your training, making things better. It's like, but was what you were doing before working? It's like maybe you didn't give yourself enough time doing that thing you were doing before to progressively overload that into a sense where you're getting the best results out of it. And now you're just switching to something completely new. And now you have to build up like that adaptation to that exercise. It's like, then you're going to see something else I do and be like, oh, I'm going to incorporate that and get rid of this. And like, and like give yourself the time to develop the skill at whatever it is you're doing, so that you can then start, and like not to get too technical, but like the neurological adaptation to whatever it is you're doing, so that now when you put in the work, you're actually adding in what are called myofibrillar units, or like the actual units of muscle to whatever you're doing. I know we were talking like broader, like with wealth and everything like that, but talking in a more hypertrophically oriented sense.
Yeah.
Because you guys did make a transformation that I think a lot of people would want to do. I also want to finish off your guys' lifting dirties and we make it all the way around.
This will be 8 years. 2024 will be 8 years. I was 230 pounds. I was not obese by any means, but I wasn't missing any meals, that's for sure. And the turning point for me was twofold. I was 19 years old. I was drinking half a handle of Kentucky Gentleman bottom shelf rock gut whiskey every 2 or 3 days. I was just being a college kid. I didn't have, I wasn't battling demons. I was just partying and eating like I was still in high school playing 2 sports, but I wasn't moving like it. And the turning points for me were twofold. I was headed upstairs to go grab some food, and I heard one of my friends say in the basement of the house that we were in, "Damn, smoke is getting thick." And I went, "Fuck, I think he just fat shamed." Oh, pardon me. I went, "Oh crap, I think he just fat shamed me into action," which is fine. For my life, fat shaming was a huge tide shift for me. And then I went to the doctor for a physical at 21, and he said, "Your blood pressure is a concern of mine." And I went, "I am 21 years old. That is unacceptable." And so I made the shift, went from fat to fit, got a little bit disordered eating with the tracking of being a little bit too diligent on it and over restricting after overeating, and went through a cycle of that, as a lot of former fat guys do. I'm sure you've dealt with difficult relationships with food, you too, Baxter and former fat guy here. It gets tough, and then you start to evolve past that and eat and train because you love your body, not because you hate it. But it looked like trying to stay too thin for too long, which is why I think I could have made a lot more physique progress had I stopped limiting myself and committed to a bulk, which is why I really appreciated my conversation with Joel today, of him saying, I just said, screw it, and I ate whatever for 7 days, and I feel 10 times better. I'm done not putting my foot on the gas for a bulk. So it's been a long journey and a lot of mental battles for former fat kids, as I'm sure a lot of guys can relate to, but we're 8 years in now, and it's been a blessing. So what about you?
I guess for me, I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, I think I'm the grandpa of Echo because I'm 31, turning 32 here.
Oh, you are? I think you are.
I think I am the grandpa of the team. But it was the end of 2021, or at the end of 2020, my girlfriend passed away, and I was very unhealthy. I was 275 pounds. I smoked 2 packs a day, drank half a gallon a day, smoked a bunch of weed. If you looked up in the dictionary unhealthy, I'm pretty sure I had like a mugshot right next to that word. But then after 2021, I was very depressed all year long after that passing of my girlfriend. I was like, okay, something's got to change here. And not only did I want to change, it was like, I just kind of need to turn everything around. So 2022, I started the year at 275 pounds, and it was just like, I need to lose this weight. I need to cut all my vices. I need to make a change. So I started following bodybuilders on YouTube, because how else to build your body other than by learning from bodybuilders? So that's when I learned about calorie deficits, nutrient-dense foods, all that good stuff. And while I worked out 5 times a week, I did the gym thing consistently. I had a pretty good full body, regimen that I was on. All my work was in the kitchen. That's why all my content is food-based, because even still today, I quit smoking, I quit drinking, I quit smoking weed. Out of any vice I've let go, the hardest one still to this day is food. That's probably my hot take, is food is a worse addiction than cigarettes, booze, or weed. And don't get me wrong, those are horrible. Kids, don't smoke. But food is the hardest one, because you can cold turkey all those other ones. You can't cold turkey food. You can't tell somebody, never eat again. You just can't do it. But 2020, I lost about 110 pounds. I got down to about 160, very, very lean. Got that low, and I hadn't been that small since I was 13 years old. So I was like, I'm way too tiny now. So then I did my first bulk at the end of 2020 until October of this last year. And now it's kind of like you guys said. You've been at 8 years, 6+ years, a very, very long time. Yeah, I'm just kind of continuing to learn to love it and learn that it's a long process. And I might hit my genetic potential by about the age of 35, but it's pretty much just kind of doing that daily grind of watch what you eat, keep your calories and protein in check, lift as hard as you can. Don't overthink it. That's my biggest thing. It's you mentioned this, Marco. Get in the gym, keep a consistent weightlifting program, and whatever it is, just do 1 more rep. Add 2.5 pounds. Just do that every single time you go in. Those little tiny victories will add up every single time. You do that for You know, I've done it for 2 years. I've done pretty good work for myself. Do it for as long as you guys have done it. Damn, it's a lot of little victories that add up to a big giant. So that's the long and the short for me, is that it was always a food battle for me, because I mean, I'm sure my boy Bax could feel me. We could probably throw down a 10,000 calorie day if you and me sat at the table from each other. But and that's why my hot take is I still think bulking is harder than cutting, just because when I bulk, it's like, oh yeah, I got to be in a surplus. Not that much of a surplus.
I never thought about it that way, but yeah, that's a good point.
Like, yeah,
Like even me, like I just started like going back into bulk recently, and it's still hard. Like people think, oh, it's just gonna be so easy when you have to bulk again, but you still have to like not
Yeah,
restrict
totally.
yourself, but moderate yourself. I think moderation is harder than straight up just restricting.
I can tell myself don't
yeah,
eat. It's a lot easier to tell myself don't eat, but then you put,
Yeah.
oh, you have more calories. Well, how many more calories?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so
To your point, that's like telling a smoker, all right, you're only gonna smoke half a pack a day.
Exactly.
That's crazy.
Exactly.
That's such, okay, so you said something that I think is, I agree with you wholeheartedly. You said it's easier for me to turn on a switch and restrict
Mhm.
than it is to allow myself the extra food, because we're all former heavy guys where I didn't leave the table until my plate was clean. I was raised that way, and that bled into my adult life, and I still like to eat a lot now. For me, if I can just flip the switch in my head, I can cut. I eat 2 nutrient-dense meals a day. I can easily lose body fat. But when I start training, I'll go, yeah, I'll have an extra 300 calories. I train carbs a day. And then you start to give yourself a little too much permission. So I'm really glad you vocalized that, because I don't think I've ever heard anybody else say that.
I think one of the biggest mistakes that people make when they're coming out of a fat loss phase, stuff like that, is thinking of calories in terms of types of food. So what happens is, like, most of the people that I work with, when I take them through a decent fat loss phase, let's say they got down to, I don't know, like 2,000 calories, or maybe even like 1,800 or 1,600 calories when they were cutting. What will happen is, as soon as they hear, I can have 2,500 calories, because they've been restricting for so long, it sounds like a lot. And so what it's like is, oh, well, like that sounds like a lot more food. So it's like, so what they'll do is they'll start incorporating foods that like are a little bit more delectable, that are a little bit more like, they're friendlier to the brain, let's put it that way. And what happens is, as soon as they do that, their hunger spikes like mad. They were actually more full on 1,600 or 1,800 calories of high quality food than they were starting to try to incorporate those like hyper palatable foods at 2,500 calories.
Yeah.
And so they get to the 2,500 and it's like, oh shoot, I'm starving. Like it just becomes this cycle where they can't like quench it, and then they go over.
It's your Achilles heel of the if it fits your macros approach.
Exactly.
That's the weak point.
And so what I typically say to anybody who's like starting to deal with, like, they're coming out of a fat loss phase, first off, I say cut it off early. Like if you start to feel it to getting to the point where it's like getting like really like grinding and stressful, stop yourself early, go to a maintenance phase. Like, because if you try to like grind your way through that, like all the way through, there will come a breaking point, and the breaking point will be far worse if you don't cut it off early than if you wait till it happens. So take that maintenance phase, but then when you're doing that, eat the same foods. Don't try to switch up your foods, because the minute you hear like, oh, 500 extra calories, I can fill that in with like whatever.
Well, that goes back to
That
the
is hard.
The only diet that works is the one you can do for the rest of your life. Like if you're losing weight, you better be ready to eat that food the rest of your life. Like that's my issue with like keto and carnivore. Yeah, they give you success, but can you eat that way for the rest of your life?
Exactly.
If you can, all that weight's coming right back.
And there's the problem is the 1 in 10, or probably even less than that, the 1 in 50 or 1 in 100 that can do that can eat that way the rest of their life are the loudest ones.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're the ones that are screaming about it. Like everybody has to eat this. I've done it for 10 years and it's been great. And they're like, and they assume that their experience with that will be the same for everybody else.
Yeah, Stan Efferding's quote, "Compliance is the science," is something I say a lot, because the best, to your point, what is the best angle for the incline? What is the best diet? What is the best protein? I've had 100 people in the last week ask me, what is the best protein powder? The best anything, the best training program, the best dietary protocol is the one you will stick to, because I can put you on the most optimal research-backed program in history, and if you do it 30% of the time, your results are going to be bad. But if you can stick to a half as optimal program for 100% of the time, you are going to make greater strides. So the best program, best diet is the one you can stick to. It's that simple.
Yeah, I think that brings up, I have a question, which is something that, like, the single best thing that lifting has brought me, besides confidence, which I think was just part of also growing up, is the work ethic that has been built and cultivated through the gym has bled over into everything, primarily like career and performance in school and stuff like that. And I'm wondering if there is any diversion for other people, or are those two different tracks, or is it similar for everyone where it's like, once I got serious about this, I noticed that I could commit to other things elsewhere so much better? Because I think that that's one of the main reasons why I say that people should get into the gym is like, you don't realize that it's not like this will take away from other aspects of your life. It'll actually completely change the ones that are already existing and allow you to perform better and commit, you know, whether it's like doing the work in school, the homework that you shouldn't be doing is mentally not that different from going and doing the workout that you should be doing, but you don't want to do. And so I just want to open the floor on that sort of how they're symbiotic.
That's a great question. I will start with Baxter for that.
Yeah, I think you do have a point there. Before I started all this, like before I started going to the gym consistently, getting my diet right, I don't know if it was because it's linked to what I do for a career now, but I didn't really stick to anything like before all this happened. I'd actually consider myself very lazy, like didn't really have a work ethic like at all. And then it was like just like a switch when everything started to like dial in, like related to fitness and all that. But
And now you have an insane work ethic. I mean, building the page, the content, that is the result of consistency and showing up over a long period of time.
yeah, this is like the first thing I've actually been consistent with, like
In your life?
yeah, like I guess I can say that, like seriously consistent with, yeah.
Well, one of the things that I can point out for Baxter that I saw specifically that none of you guys would have seen, and that none of you guys would have seen, is when Baxter was in that stage where he was like getting to the end of his cut and he'd been like grinding really hard for it. Well, you guys all know how Baxter has super high energy on his page, right?
Oh, yeah.
Well, he was super low energy in general. I would watch him turn it on in order to be that super high energy person for his videos. And the minute it was over, and like, but like he would push himself through that. He would because he knew he had an obligation to his fans, to his following, to be able to keep that energy up. And like people would notice when I was doing my own content in my own prep, they'd be like, "Feel a little low energy today," and I'd be like, "Shoot!" I'm trying to like, but like he would put it out there every single time, and I was like, and like it was motivating to me to see him be able to bring that level when I knew what was going on in the background and I knew that he was just gas, but he would still bring that same level of energy for them.
Yeah, you did flick a switch because last time I was here was when you were deep in that cut.
Yeah.
It was like watching you turn on a personality when you were live, when the OB mix dropped.
Mhm.
You were in, you were locked in, and then we stopped and you're like, "Can we please eat some food now?" It was just a shift, but it's a testament to work ethic. I mean, that's what it comes down to. People ask about how to build a social media page or how long until I go viral. It's just like anything else worth having in life. It is work ethic. It's just in a weird industry that's very convoluted and ambiguous. But back to your question about what training has taught us all, Eric, what has training taught you? Obviously, you do a lot of it. So what has it done for you?
Gym has done everything for me. I'll represent this right here. I'll go by this saying, when you get a heavy weight or you get a burden in life, you still got to push through. Whether it's 505, whether it's getting up at 3 a.m. every single day to get to go to your job, whether it's you got to do task after task after task, whether it's the mental health that you got to deal with, you still got to push through. Things are tough. Things do get hard, but we still find a way to be that superhero. That way, when we tap into it, we get it done. For me personally, I had to get up at 3 a.m. for work. I would have to go home, pick up my wife, go study for school to be an EMT, and I would have to go live and then do it all over again. And that taught me so much toughness. And through that, it just like, seriously, that's my Instagram name and TikTok name, Faith in Plates. Because of that tough times, it developed me as a strong person. It was very painful, but it helped a lot. Also with my confidence too. Everywhere I go into, it's just like, man, if I see a strong person, I know they put in a lot of work. I look at people at a service level. Most people, they try to compare themselves. I look at it as like, no, you really committed so much time and effort into your craft. I think about every successful person, they just think, oh, they got it made. Absolutely not. They had to work for it. So whether you are painting, whether you are a writer, whoever built this desk right here, they had to put this into work. And so whether it's in the gym, it represents life. When things get hard, you still got to push through. And you got to put the time, commitment, and effort. People see me, you're so strong. They don't understand the time and work ethic. So yeah.
That's a great answer.
Yeah,
That's a really great answer. Well said. Mark?
I think it's a metaphoric. I look at it metaphorically, because you go to exercise, you look to push your limits, and that rep that you think that you couldn't do, but you did anyway because you pushed past your fear, is a representation of what you can do outside of that.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
Well said.
Whether it be studies or and I like to think about things like if Bill Gates had amazing genetics. But maybe he does. I don't know. If Bill Gates,
He's never taken advantage of it. I know that.
if Bill Gates has like amazing bodybuilding genetics, and he put the same work ethic he did to creating Word, because I looked at the story. He was working 20 hours a day. If he put that same work ethic towards bodybuilding, I can guarantee he'd be in Olympia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Bill Gates would be a Mr. Olympia.
It would have been Bill Gates on the stage instead of Schwarzenegger.
That's your hot take.
That is a hot take.
It applies on everything, you know what I mean? Because I know these people who became who went from nothing all the way to, being a billionaire. They started from nothing and they just kept pushing and they kept pushing. They didn't stop no matter what. And when you're exercising and when you show yourself that you can push for that rep you didn't think that you could do, it's a representation to show that why can't you do these other things? Because you can.
Very true.
You're just holding yourself back. The biggest enemy is honestly going to be yourself. Nobody's going to tell you that you can't.
It's a great way.
It's just you telling yourself that you can't, and you're stopping yourself. Get out of your own head.
Oh, that.
Well said, man. Well said.
I think for me, one of the main things that bodybuilding has been, or just building the physique in general, has taught me over time, is that you don't always see the outcome right away. Because a lot of times what happens is with a lot of tasks that you do, there's a start point and there's an end point to that task. Even if you do it over and over again, there's start point, end point. You can see the end product of whatever it is you're doing, whatever it is you're crafting. With the physique, you can't. It's you have to actually take and put some trust that what you're doing is the proper steps forward each day you do it. There's that I don't think I've, obviously when you first start, you can see changes by the week. You can see changes, and then as you go further, maybe changes by the month. But now it's when I go through a phase where I'm building up, it's I legitimately am having a hard time seeing whether there's any progress whatsoever. It's hard to know.
Yeah.
It's hard to see. You would get to a certain point where the gains come slower. Things are, and you're okay, well, I know the weight's moving a little bit easier. I know things are it's but is that really doing what it needs to do? And it's when you get to that point where you're okay, now it's time to cut. Now it's time to show off what's there. It's a little bit nervous. You're a little bit nervous. You're I think I've done enough. I think I've built something. And then but you have to go through and you have to trust that what you're doing is the right thing, because you know the knowledge, you put in the work, but at some level there's still that doubt. Well, what if I only put on half a pound of muscle from the last time that I put on size? And then you get down to that level and you see the differences, and it's just it's so much work for something that's that ultimately doesn't mean a lot. Okay. And I know that sounds crazy, coming from me, but ultimately it doesn't mean a lot. But it's a craft that you love and that you want to see how far you can push yourself in. And if you boil anything down, because I've heard people say before, well, why bodybuilding's so dumb? You do all this just to put on a couple extra pounds of muscle, blah, blah, blah. I'm okay, yeah, you can do that with any aspect of life.
Mm-hmm.
If you distill it down to its root as to what you're actually doing, anything sounds dumb when you put it like that.
Yeah.
But if you have something that you're dedicated to, I think one of the best quotes that I ever heard, I think it was from C.S. Lewis. He said, if you're going to be a chimney sweep, be the best chimney sweep in the entire world.
Yeah.
So whatever it is that you're doing, throwing yourself 100% into it and trying to become the best version of yourself in that area. And that's what it was for bodybuilding for me. But it doesn't have to be that for you. Because I hear a lot of people say, well, not everybody's going to be a bodybuilder. Not everybody's going to be an Instagram influencer. Not everybody's going to be, you don't have to be. It's like, but when you find something that you're passionate about, that you really enjoy doing, if you're just going to kind of dip your toes into the water, there's a lot of things you're not gonna figure out about yourself. And you learn so much about yourself when you commit to something that is hard and takes a long period of time to do. And if you don't have something like that in your life, that's going to take years to develop, maybe even decades to develop. And everything you do is just about instant gratification. You're never really going to develop any depth as a person.
Yeah.
And like I said, like, I know that's like, we're talking like bodybuilding, we're talking like building muscle, losing fat. Like it sounds very surface level in that, but it's not really about that. It's about the process of the journey that you're actually taking yourself through.
Yeah, embodying processes of delayed gratification does add depth to you as a human being. And in a world where instant gratification is all around us, in the lifestyle we live, the comments, the followers, it's instant dopamine. And really all we chase as humans, and it's what I think training has done for me, is I'm fascinated by neuroscience. I love the concept of how certain things we do can impact the way we think and feel. And for me, I operate at a higher frequency when I train. I think sharper, I think clearer, I sleep better, I'm kinder, I have more energy. For me, it's about sense of well-being. So that's what it's taught me, is that I was a better corporate employee, I was a better salesperson, I was better thinking on my feet because of my habits, because of my diet. Put two guys equal to each other in all facets and one takes care of themselves physically, I put my money on that guy. So for me, it's about operating at a higher frequency. But to your point, I agree with both of you heavily. You said if you don't do anything with the principal goal of delayed gratification, you don't gain a lot of depth as a person. And that is personally why I love building a physique, and endurance training. Like I think I'm the only one here that does long runs. I've done an ultra marathon. When you're on your feet for 6 hours in the pouring rain and you're at elevation and it's just miserable, you learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about where your limits are and how to push past them. And just like being in the gym, Courtney Dauwalter, one of the best ultra runners in the world, calls it the pain cave. It's a place in your mind that only hard physical things can take you to, where you learn about yourself. So it's about more than building your body. It's about building your confidence. It's about stacking wins for your confidence and self-discipline. And I think the last thing is there is a benefit to taking care of yourself. You said when you see a fit person, you see their personality traits embodied in their body. The ability to build a body shows that you can stick to something long term. It shows that you can handle adversity. It shows that you're okay with being uncomfortable. And those people, I had a coaching client who's a retired HVAC business owner. He sold his business for a lot of money, and he's been training now for a year. And he said, if I could go back, I would have hired more physically fit people, because those personality traits, I think, carry over into general work ethic. So that is what I've noticed personally in my training. And I think the last thing I'll say about it is it's very hard for me as a human being to be present. My mind runs a million miles a minute. We make a living on social media. Our brain is all over the place all the time. But when I have a heavy weight in my hands or on my back, it's the only thing I'm thinking about. And that there's a lot of peace in that. And for me, it's like a form of meditation, honestly, not to get too woo-woo with it, but it's the only thing in my day where I know I'm not thinking about anything else other than what's in front of me.
For me, you guys have pretty much touched on every single point on it. It's a matter of dedication, and it's thinking about things in just like fat loss and muscle building. It's really surface level, but the dedication and the time it takes to do anything in life that's worth building. Anything worth having in life takes time. End of story. Whether it's like my social media page or the body that I built over my weight loss, you're gonna put work in for the first month, or even like building a business. You're gonna put work in for 1 to 2 to 3 months. You're not going to see a single ROI. You're not going to see anything quickly. Like you might see like little steps here and there, but that thing you're envisioning in your head when you start, you're not going to see it for a good long while. And it's that immediate gratification everyone's looking for. You're not going to get it. And if you're looking for that in anything, you're gonna get disheartened. You're going to jump off board. You're going to say, I don't like this. I think the biggest thing that what weightlifting and just health in general taught me was you're going to put work in. You're not going to see things quickly. Like you said, faith in plates. Have faith it's going to turn out. Stick to it. And it might not turn out exactly how you think it's going to, but if you do the work, you do the right thing, and just you can look yourself in the mirror at the end of every day and say, I did everything I could. It will work out. Just have faith, keep grinding. It's pretty simple.
Well said. Very well said.
There's one question kind of going into a different subject. What tips y'all got for content creation and keeping the drive to make it?
Be
So you
prepared
guys
for
are
all
like in the
ideas.
social media industry now.
That is a great question. You should start.
All right. I think just finding a way to enjoy it, because once again, it's just it's a long-term commitment.
Yeah.
If you really want to like think about it, if you people always like talk about going viral. Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait to go viral. This and that. You go viral, then what happens? Like what is gonna drive people to come back and watch you again? Just because they see one viral video of you. Like how many viral videos have you seen and then went back and watched them religiously?
Yeah.
You gotta think about it like that. You have to do other things. You have to do other things to maintain someone's interest in you.
Yep.
They're either giving being entertaining, giving out tips, something like that. You have to be deeper than just trying to have one hit. You know.
Well, I think you have to get into it for the right reasons.
Yeah.
We were talking about this last night with our Uber driver who was asking us. She started asking us about what we did for a living. We started talking about it, and she talked about a social media agency and what that would look like. And I think the reason that all of our pages have become popular is because we didn't go into it thinking, I want to go viral. I want to make this my job. Everything that happened in my TikTok was an accident. I didn't expect any of it. It all happened very quickly. All I thought was, I can't make people want to care about the stuff in my personal life. I don't want to hold people captive. So I'll just make like a video diary. And if anyone wants to hear what I have to say, great. But I would try to force conversations with people in my life that did not care about the things we care about. Because let's be real, it's kind of a niche topic, the things we enjoy talking about. So it's important my tip for content creation would be get into it for the right reasons. If you're going into it because you're trying to make it your job, you're trying to go viral, you're trying to make money, and you're doing it for any other reason than you're trying to create value in the world and you're trying to help people, then in my opinion, that's something you won't be able to stick to long term.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that people who have come to me and said like, oh, like you've turned this into a career, like how can I do the same thing, sort of thing. I think one of the biggest issues is this. The main thing that people come when they come to me and they say that they want to do something like this for a living is their reason is simple. They like the gym and they like money. I'm like, I'm sorry, that's not enough. Like if that is your motivation, like I like going to the gym and it'd be cool to make money to go to the gym. I'm like, okay, you are adding nothing of value that millions of other people don't also have the exact same interest as you. A lot of people like the gym and a lot of people like money. But if you're not actually finding a way to provide value for other people, what is the reason that they would watch you do the same thing that everybody else is doing? Unless you have the absolute best physique in the world, you taking off your shirt to music is not going to sell you as a person.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you are the funniest person in the world, you just telling a joke here and there is not going to make you the most valuable person to somebody. Unless you are the absolute best when it comes to workout tips, just giving a workout tip here and there is not going to be something that makes you extremely valuable to everybody. So unless you are the best in one of those areas, you have to find a way to connect with your audience as a person. And if you connect with them as a person, it's like I can take interest in you as a person. I can take interest in you as a person. I can take interest in you as a person. Doesn't matter that you are specifically an expert in X field. Doesn't matter you aren't specifically an expert in X field. All of you have interesting personalities and you make me want to know you better.
Yeah. Yep.
Know you as a person, and then your content is also nice to have.
Yes.
But if you're not making yourself interesting and available to your audience and making it so that it's a dialogue, I think a lot of times people think they're going to be the next David Lade, where it's like everybody just wants to look like you.
Mm-hmm.
It's like not everybody wants to look like me. Like I mean, I know like a lot of you guys have like over the years been like, oh, like I like your physique. But if I had come onto the platform as somebody who was like, here's my physique, follow me, never. It would have never happened. There are so many people that have better physiques, that have accomplished more physically than I have, that have been leaner than I am, bigger than I am, more impressive than I am. What you guys have really followed me for over time, and I'm very grateful for it, is the fact that I've tried to look at what are you guys looking for and how can I provide that for you?
Yeah.
And that's really what it comes down to. When I came onto the platform, all I did was just dissect nutrition studies. Wasn't that interesting for a lot of people. So what I did was I adapted my content over time as I saw, okay, this person wants to know a little bit about this. This person wants to know a little bit about this. How can I narrow it down more and more till I figure out how I can reach the most people that are interested in something that I am also passionate about?
Yeah.
I had no idea that was going to be bodybuilding. Zero clue that was going to be bodybuilding when I started. And that's what it turned into, because I found something that I could also be passionate about alongside of people, rather than making it, I'm going to do whatever I want to do. If you don't like it, screw you.
And piggybacking off of kind of you and Bax both, I mean, it's finding a style. I mean, it's finding like, what do you do that will resonate with people? Because like you said, dude, how many people you see out there go viral and boom, you put out your Ice Baby and you're gone. It's done and over with. I mean, my big break was, I think at the beginning of 2023, I walked through Costco, saw some protein bars. I was like, let's rank Costco's protein bars from worst to the best. The best might surprise you. Went viral. As soon as I had that, I was like, okay, what do I do now to keep this attention? Because it's all shifted, and I learned right there. People like protein bars. You found what people like. Okay, well, let me start talking about protein bars and food, making reviews, and doing things like that. Because, I mean, I heard you and Blake Nutrition, our shout out Blake, talk about this. No one cares if you can bench 315. Unless you're Arnold or, Mr. Olympia, no one cares what you look like. No one really cares your numbers, you look like, none of that. It's about you as a person. If you're on social media, you are the commodity. That might be the lamest thing I've ever said in my life, but you're the commodity. You got to have some kind of value to add to it. Like me, I bring really stupid jokes, and I tell you what kind of foods I like as a former fat guy, and I share my recipes and do things like that. And then outside of that, another thing, if you're going to look at content creation at all, be prepared to look like an idiot when you get started. I mean, if you're me, you'll still look like an idiot. But I mean, the first, I think, 20 videos I made on YouTube were horrible. I mean, you and me talked about this at dinner the other night, dude. You look back at anybody on the internet and look back at their first videos they ever made. Oh man, they're so bad.
So bad.
They are so bad. But you find that style, like I was saying, you perfect it, you find people like, and you just keep working on it. It's just like in the gym. Find your craft, find what you're doing, tune it up, and just dial it in where you need it to be.
Accept that you're going to suck for a while, but one thing you guys all do really well, twofold. What you see is kind of what you get. I know you're not putting on a facade or a personality. Like, you are who you are, and that is authentic, and people buy authenticity and relatability. You're not this holier than thou person. You're extremely relatable. People think you're hilarious. You interact with them. That's something you have mastered, is building a community. Because you said you've responded to every DM you've ever gotten. I saw that in a clip. That's insane. That is insanely impressive.
You're nuts for that.
That is so impressive. But it's often, because I don't want to say like do it for the right reasons. That's not a tip. Be authentic. Don't try to be something you're not, and just provide value. It's not rocket science, but it's also not easy to do for a long, long time. It's very difficult.
Yeah, I want to make one point to that, because I think sometimes people will mistake what you just said about being authentic, because they think being authentic is, well, I mean, I'm going to talk to the camera like this. This is me. This is my authentic self. Like, people are not going to say for that. You can amplify traits.
Yeah.
Right.
Good point. Very good point.
Yeah. Like Bax is a pretty like upbeat, like, okay. But obviously when he does his videos, he like takes that and he dials it up.
That's very
And he
good.
takes that and he like brings it out, and he brings extra energy to it. So it's like, you can be authentic, but you definitely have to bring some level of, all right, let's be in this together.
You and me
Let's
talk
make
about
this
this
happen.
everybody on the internet. You take their personality up, turn it up to 20, let it ride. People will either like it or they'll hate it, and that's all you can do.
I have one more thing on that. I have a theory that the wisdom of the crowd is actually really potent. And if one individual can't pick up on something, the general masses will. And if you are doing it sort of as a self-serving thing, and you're making videos because you either want to be famous or you want the validation, the general sentiment will pick up on that. And they will know, and you will get exactly the reaction that you deserve. And so that's kind of the authenticity thing, but I think that you could authentically be like, I want to be famous, and that probably also won't work out the best for you. And so I think that it really does have to come from a point of either I want to, like, why do you deserve to be watched? And if you can't answer that question honestly with yourself, then you're probably not ready for it, or you should shift how you view it. That's my 2 cents.
Good answer. Quick question while we're rolling. Do we have a time limit on this episode?
Is there?
It's right now we're in an hour and 20 minutes. We can go for 2 hours.
Oh, we go for 2 hours. Let's keep rolling. Any good questions come through?
There's one question for you. How did you diet in the military?
Okay, so what I did a lot of the time was, again, I'm going to speak from a higher rank perspective. When I was a sergeant already, I would do things like I would pay my buddy, because I lived in the barracks. We couldn't cook in the barracks, and it also depends on what command you go to. I had a buddy that lived, off base, and I would pay him to meal prep. So I would buy the groceries, and then I would pay him. Or since I had a chow hall available just right by me, the chow hall literally had every single food option. So you could get the nasty foods, you could get the pizza and burgers, or you have a whole salad bar right there. And there's a chicken breast option. So you are very capable of making your own decisions. So you can make the decision of getting chicken breast and a ton of vegetables and a ton of complex carbohydrates, or you can go ahead and get the pizza option and get the nasties. So if you're in the military, and again, depending on the situation, now if you are on if you're at a high-paced situation, say for example, if you were in the U.S. military in 2006 or give or take, then you'd have no choice. You'd probably be deployed. But if you're at peacetime, who's to say that you can't spend or have a buddy meal prep your food? Who's to say you can't? You know what I mean? Because again, with military service members, they will spend their money on a lot of stupid things, like strippers. Okay, I'm not swearing here, but they will spend their entire paycheck, probably $2,000 a night, on a stripper, thinking that the stripper is into them. No, they're just finessing you. So you can either spend money having a buddy meal prep you for maybe $400 a month, or you could go to the strip club and think that the woman's gonna be into you.
There's a bigger lesson there though. What you said I never would have thought was an option. Paying someone off-site to meal prep. But it's a good testament to, if you really want to, you'll find a way. People will figure it out. I was talking to a mutual friend of Bax Shots, Hampton, who's a new dad, newly married, new job, very busy man, and he's talking about finding time for his training, and he said something that stood out to me. He said, it's amazing what a human being can do when they're given no choice. If you really want to figure out a way to do something like diet in the military, or get to the gym when you work 60 hours a week, you have 2 kids, you're not sleeping a lot, if you really want to find a way, human beings will find a way. You will figure it out. It may require you to think outside the box, God forbid. Like, that is very outside the box thinking, to have someone come in and bring food to you. That's smart.
Yeah.
Good advice. So just figure out a way. Decide if you really want something and figure out a way to make it happen. There's no magic recipe to be successful in something.
Someone asked, should you train to failure even if you're a beginner?
So, okay. So when it comes
Who should answer that question?
All right, so when it comes to beginners and training, I think often they get into the weeds a little bit too much. The most important thing as a beginner is, are you picking a variety of good movements that work in multiple planes that you can progress over time? And as long as you're progressing those movements over time, whether you're going to failure, just shy of failure, like, you want to be pushing yourself hard, obviously. But in the end, it's not going to be something where if you take and you have 1 rep in reserve, 2 reps in reserve, or you're going to failure on your sets, it's not going to make a massive difference. And I think that, honestly, I know this is going to sound kind of crazy, but even for like advanced athletes, there are going to be nuances to it where sometimes you're going to failure, sometimes you have a rep in reserve. Me personally, you guys know that I take pretty well every set to failure. That is not something that I advise for everybody to do. I think it works really well for my particular style of training, how much volume I induce. And then over time, I figured out, okay, what volume can I handle training in this style? And if I did want to up my volume over time, I know, like, just from what I can handle, that I would have to lower the intensity a little bit. So I don't think it's something where you guys have to say, okay, so-and-so goes to failure every single set. So-and-so does 2 reps in reserve every single set, maybe failure on the last set. Somebody never goes to failure. It's like, if you are progressing those movements over time, that is going to be the thing that causes growth. So it does not need to be a set in stone to failure or not to failure. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of times people get stuck in this, everybody wants to be tribalistic, and this comes down to a lot of things. It's like, I go to failure. I don't go to failure. I only go to failure on the last set. It's like, and people have these camps that they get themselves into. In the end, what we talked about before is the reason that a 37-year-old is massive, despite not having every single aspect of his training dialed in, is because he's kept showing up and he's been putting in work over time. And he may have started at, I'm going to say bench press, but you guys know like my overall thoughts on bench press. But he started off at like a 135-pound bench press, and he's now that 37-year-old guy who's been in the gym forever. And you see him benching 350 like it's nothing for reps. It's like, in the end, that is why he's grown.
Yeah, it just kept progressing.
Right. It's like, okay, did he have to go to failure every time or not go to failure every time in order to get himself up to there? No, he had to put in the work over time that allowed him to continue to progress. And that was what ultimately caused the growth.
Yeah, I got a question for you too. I mean, you can totally correct me if I'm wrong. Just kind of here's how I've done it, just as an uneducated guy when it comes to lifting. When I first go to a new gym, because you always got new machines. Like every machine will be different, the weights will be different, they'll move a little bit different. Everything's different. Or if you want to change, from one style level to a different one, I always do what's called a discovery period, like about a week. I grab weights, I move them. If I can get past 12 reps, let's up that weight. If I can't even hit 8 reps, maybe I should, lower the weights a little bit. But I find that failure point first, like just arbitrary pull out of my butt number, dumbbell bench press at 95 pounds. I can get 10 reps of those and I fail. Okay. Well, then instead of trying to hit failure every single time, I just do like you just said. Okay, now get 11 reps. Now get 12 reps. Okay, I hit 12. Let's add a little bit of weight. I usually spend about a week or so finding failure on every single lift, and then working from there to progress those numbers up so I don't fail.
That's a perfectly valid method. No, that's great.
Yeah, I like that. Question, what we could do for the listeners and the people that are watching, I'm sure a ton of questions have been submitted as we've sat here and chatted for multiple minutes. We could do like a rapid fire. You guys down for that? Try to answer a handful of questions, just like spend 2 minutes on a question.
Sure.
See if we can help some people out here.
Okay, so can resting too long between sets be bad? I rest like 4 to 7 minutes between sets, not powerlifting.
Not powerlifting.
If it doesn't allow you to get in enough work, like if you're resting so long that you only get 3 sets and you planned to get 7 sets for the day, or you're becoming unproductive with your overall day to the point where you're in the gym for 4 hours and you could have been doing something for 2 hours that was more productive.
How long are you in the gym for? Anything past, if I'm not mistaken, one of our friends, Dylan, posted some research showing a certain study showing 2 to 4 minutes being plenty for being considered longer duration rest periods. I like 3 to 4 minutes tops. And I also think it's just about being efficient too. I mean, if you're, no matter what you do, a heavy single on deadlifts, a triple, a set of 5, high intensity training, after 3.5, 4 minutes, I feel pretty recovered to work again.
The only time that I won't feel recovered after that kind of period of time is something like a ridiculously hard hack squat set. Those can take you, and you don't even, the thing is you don't even think about it. It's not like you're looking at your watch wondering when your next set is. You can tell you're not ready.
Yeah.
It's if that's the thing. A lot of times people are like, well, I wait for 5.5. It's like, okay, I never know how long I'm actually resting for because I can tell whether my body is ready to go again or not. And it'll be pretty much the same for you. Now, if that means that you feel like you're ready to go in 30 seconds, you might not have pushed yourself hard enough on that last set. Now, beginners can get away with a little bit shorter rest period because they're not necessarily as capable of recruiting all the muscles that they're trying to recruit. But in the end, if you're getting yourself to 7 minutes and you're using it as a pride thing, I take 7-minute rest periods.
Camp.
It's just dumb.
Yeah, I agree.
People want black or white answers when a lot of the time the answers are in the gray.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a
You
lot
want-
of
you want-
figured out.
Yeah, you want magical amounts of sets. You want magical amounts of reps. You want the magic incline. You want the magic using a protractor to find the best angles to hit the goal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a lot of gray answers, and a lot of times through trial and error. This guy, he just keeps asking questions on the thing. He has terrible analysis paralysis. It's like getting me triggered on trying to pull my own hair out. But it's what's better, this Nautilus pull down or this pull down on here? What feels better? Okay, you know what I mean? What do you connect better to? You want what do you want me to do? Wipe your own butt? Wipe your butt? Should I wipe your butt for you too? You know what I mean? Should I lift the weight for you too? You're gonna have to figure it out. And a lot of the time, these coaches are here to guide you, but they're not there to lift the weights for you.
Yes.
What's interesting is that most of my content started with software engineering stuff, and still a lot of it because that's what I do as my day job. And the same thing exists there, where people will ask what's the best language to start with if they want to land an internship. It's the same thing. That exists everywhere in every field. It's not just lifting.
The questions that beginners ask in any craft, you will not find the experts asking or rarely even thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
I find the beginners want to ask questions they think are expert level, but they don't even know, they're unconsciously incompetent. They don't even know what they don't know.
Life is living in the gray area.
Yeah, that's about what it is. I've been pretty surprised at how intuitively you train, Joel. I go in and I train what I feel like needs to be trained, because you're so calculated in the way you cite research that people would assume you've got an Excel spreadsheet rolling for everything you do. But when you become an expert in something and it becomes sort of like a flow state where you can do it unconsciously, it's a very intuitive process, but you have to fall on your face and figure it out a few times to get to that point. And that is the part, that is the J curve that people fail at right here. It feels very steep and they quit.
Well, it's funny because I'll see every once in a while, I'll see a kid go into the comment section of some like really big guy doing a lift, and they'll be like commenting on the fact that the lift isn't optimal and stuff like that. And the big guy, I kid you not, will be doing whatever lift it is like perfectly. Like it looks amazing. Like his technique is awesome. Like he's contracting properly. He's doing the exact range of motion that he needs to. And I'll go to the kid's profile and they'll be doing like some lift that's like that they've been told is more optimal, and their form sucks.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, him doing that lift in that manner is 10 times more productive than the way that you're doing that more optimal lift in the manner you're doing. Like if you have perfect technique on a lift that isn't necessarily going to be the absolute best, it's going to be 10 times better than if your form is not that great on a movement that you think is way better.
Optimal. I almost hate that word.
I've told people to stop using it, but it
good luck.
never dies.
Good luck.
I think it started with JPG. I think that's where it really grew.
Optimal?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it started with him.
Does your age affect your training?
As in the type of training you should do?
Because like from a young age, like for example, for myself, there's a lot of people that say, oh, you shouldn't be training before like you're 17 or 16 years old because of the bone and grow.
Or you shouldn't train heavy when you're an old guy because
Exactly.
you're going to hurt
So
yourself.
what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a big gray area. You know what I mean? Michael Hearn. Saw Michael Hearn in Gold's Gym when I went there, and that man is incline bench pressing 405, and he's well in his 50s,
Yeah.
and he has no injuries.
Yeah.
So and then there's somebody else that could be like 42 and he's all banged up and might have to do a little bit of lighter weight and higher reps. Again, this is something that goes into the gray area.
Yeah, but also quick to dispel the myth, you shouldn't train before you're 17. Weight training is not going to stunt your growth.
Yeah.
That's not anything to worry about if that's the origin of the question. And whether you are, once you can figure out what failure looks like, you know how to train, whether you're 17 or 37, what it takes to get results is the same, and the results exist on a spectrum. Train hard within the rep range you select, pick movements and be consistent with them and try to get stronger. And if you want to achieve failure like I do, I love training in a 5 to 8 rep range. You like 8 to 12. It's about flavors. You know, like there's more than one way to skin a cat. Just pick the flavor you want and stick with it long term. But I wouldn't tell a 17-year-old.
Doesn't change based on what age you are.
Yeah, I wouldn't tell a 17-year-old to train differently than a 35-year-old if they were both healthy and able-bodied.
Well, I think one of the funniest things is I grew up in a rural community where there was just like farming was just it was the way of life there. So like every kid, I shouldn't say every kid, but a lot of kids grew up doing hard physical labor on the farm, like from the time they were 6 years old. And it was like, and I would hear these same people, like these same parents of these kids and stuff be like, lifting weights stunts growth. I'm like, what do you think they're doing when they're picking up those hay bales?
That's a weight they're picking up.
I'm like, there's no actual difference here other than the fact that one is happening in a gym setting and one is happening outside. What is the mechanism by which you think that this is going to
just regular household chores? Like, hey, don't ever let them lift the laundry basket, dude. Like,
right.
Stunt their growth. That's a good answer. I was rounded out. What we got next?
Can there be a thing as being too much into calorie deficit and gaining weight by not eating enough?
No. Answer.
Okay, so there are some things that can happen negatively if you go too hard with your dieting. If you go too hard with your dieting, what can happen is your energy can downregulate. You can feel like absolute garbage. You can have really bad sleep, and that can actually lead to catabolism. So like there are things that can be negative that happen with it. Will you stop losing weight? No. Could you lose a higher proportion of muscle mass relative to fat? Sure. So like things like that can happen. But when somebody tells me that I was eating too little and therefore I wasn't losing weight,
No.
that's just not what's happening. Like there could be times where you're eating so little that you're like absolutely out of it. And then what happens is you rebound the other way and you find yourself binging. So like that restrict binge cycle. But then in that case, like when we talk about a numbers standpoint, that doesn't mean you're eating too little.
Mm-hmm.
That means that over the course of time, you've eaten too much.
Mhm.
So like really it's still about eating too much, but even if it was that for a period of time you're eating too little, but then for that other period you were making up for it and going some above.
I think it also goes to the kind of the conversation of like counting your calories. A lot of people say, well, I'm not eating anything. I'm eating calories super, super low. Did you count everything you put in your mouth? Did you count that dressing? Did you count the 20 pieces of gum you chewed that day? I mean, normally I don't count gum, but if I go through a full pack in a day, there's 200 calories right there.
Right.
I mean, just did you count every single thing? Did you miss 100 here? Did you miss 100 there? Because those compound in the day. If you miss 75 calories in every meal and you got 5 meals in a day, there's almost your entire calorie deficit right there.
Yeah, a lot of people, a survey was done that showed that people who say they had a broken metabolism underestimated their caloric intake by 50% on average.
Yeah.
So either you're underestimating or you're not being for real with yourself, and you'll go into an extreme deficit of 1,200, 1,500 calories a day below maintenance for 7 days and then have 8,000 calories on the weekend, and then you start to spin your wheels. But I know people who do a 1,200 calorie deficit cut, but they still go train hard to failure, they still hit their protein goal, and they lose body fat very, very quickly.
Yeah.
But the level of calorie deficit you can adhere to is going to be what's best for you. I like a modest one. Some people like an aggressive one. I just like to eat a lot of food, so I'd rather cut a little bit longer. So no, you're not going to gain weight from eating too little ever. That defies laws.
Well, I think it's one of those things where I think it's one of those things everybody actually understands it. They do. And when you know they understand it, when you start giving them extreme examples. Because the minute somebody tells me that, I say, okay, now I want you to go to Africa and think of starving children. How many of them are fat?
Yes.
And they'll be like, well, that's different. It's like, why? And like, the thing is, like, they'll never be able to explain it. It's like, okay, let's take a look at the Minnesota starvation experiment. They had these men, they put them on 1,600 calories for 6 months, and every single one of them came out the other end looking like a skeleton.
Yeah.
It's like 1,600, like that's like in a lot of people's minds who are about the I ate too little. Like a lot of them would say like, okay, like I've been eating like around that amount, and I've been doing that for like months, and I can't lose weight. It's like these guys, like all of them, looked like concentration camp victims coming. There you go, concentration camp.
Yeah.
It's like how many of those people were coming out overweight? It's like, so they all know, like everybody knows deep down that not eating enough will lead to losing weight 100% of the time.
Yes.
But somebody has convinced them somewhere along the line, and this is one of the phrases that I hate the most, is it's not your fault. And I'm like,
Yes, it is.
yes, it is. I get it. I'm not saying it's not hard. It is like, and for some people, it's going to be way harder than others. Like 100% is going to be way harder than others. So in the end, you can take accountability for your actions. And I would say the only time, and this is one of the questions that I got asked is being obese a choice? Like that's always a question I get asked. And then there's one caveat that I give. And I say, staying obese is a choice.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the fact that like there are people that grew up who their family, like from the time they were 5 years old, have been obese. And like that is not their fault. That is the fault of the parents.
Yeah.
It is very, very, like somebody who has been obese from 5, 6, 7, 8, all the way up. That is the fault of the parents.
100%.
And so it's like, and so at that point, I'm not saying it was your fault that you became obese. But if you decide to stay obese, that is ultimately going to lie on your decisions. And it could be 10 times harder for you than it is for me. And it might be 10 times harder for me than it is for the next person.
I know you just struck a chord with him when I heard you go, when you talked about like, is it a choice or
Yeah,
it's not your fault?
I completely agree, and I think that I don't know if we're the brain broken ones or everybody's brain broken or they're the brain broken ones. We fundamentally, and it sounds like some of us have had to change our mindset on food. It is such an emotional topic for so many people that that's why they look for other answers. That's why even if they understand it, they will lie in the face of facts and say, "This I am overweight because of X, Y, or Z." That is not a caloric deficit, or that is not a caloric surplus. And I think that I fundamentally see food as like fuel that can taste good. For so many people, it is so much more nuanced than that, and it doesn't surprise me why so many people struggle with that. I agree that like there is a bottom line, which is like caloric surplus, caloric deficit. The reason why so many people can't just look at that and make a change on that is because of how ingrained emotionally it is for a lot of people.
I think it goes beyond emotional. I think it goes, physiologically. Like I was saying before, weed, cigarettes, booze. I cut them all out. Hardest addiction I've ever had to manage myself is food. That's why people get so emotional about it. Is because, man, you tell somebody you can't have that thing that you love, they're going to get upset about it. I do think it's a point of physical addiction to an extent. You know, you get that dopamine from that food. You tell me you can't have that dopamine. So.
Yeah,
I really liked what you said earlier, because it is like food is the only thing that we can find ourselves addicted to that we can't go cold turkey on.
You can't quit, especially when you go on to hyper palatable foods, which if we were all overweight at one point, we weren't eating real food. We weren't eating whole natural foods that were minimally processed. All food is processed, by the way. Steak is a processed cow, but minimally processed foods is really hard to overconsume when you make that the bulk of your diet. Like,
Oh, don't test me. I can do it, bro.
Everyone that I coach from a fat loss journey perspective, for the first 4 weeks, if they're really overweight, probably novice nutrition, we go protein goal, whole foods. That's it. I want you to track your protein goal in your head using your hand with palm-sized portions. And I want you to eat as much as you want as long as it's on this list. They all lose 6 to 12 pounds in 4 to 6 weeks because it's just hard to overeat real food. But when you take foods that are engineered, you know, they have food engineers that will put just the right amount of Dorito dust on a Dorito so that you want to put your hand back in the bag to get another chip. This is not by accident. And those jack your dopamine receptors and send it to the roof so that you just want more until you feel sick and then you go back for it. It really is a drug.
If you don't fully believe what Michael's talking about right here, I want you to try out an experiment for yourself, because I've actually played around with this myself, because there have been times where I've told myself, it's like, oh yeah, like I can like overeat on like these, I can overeat on these foods, even if it's healthy, like I can way overeat. What I did was I made the absolute simplest form of that food. And then what I did was I was like, I want to see how long it takes me to like get like kind of tired of it. So like for example, like one of the things that like a lot of people will like just take white rice, okay, and do nothing to it, okay. That's the key right there. I'm not talking about like white rice with something else, with a sauce, with anything like that. I'm talking about just plain white rice. And I want you to take and I want you to experiment with it with yourself just one time. Take and like put different flavors with it, stuff like that. See how much of it you can continue to eat. And then take and just make it plain white rice and don't do anything to it. And see how much that causes you to just not want to eat as much of it. And I'm not saying that like rice is the absolute best weight loss food by any means. But I'm saying like that's a very simple food that everybody has access to that they can like test out. Test out this experiment with yourself.
You take a boiled potato and you eat plain boiled potatoes, you're not going to eat a lot of boiled potatoes. If you take that potato and you cover it in cheese, sour cream, butter, and bacon, you're going to overeat those potatoes.
Yep. And then
carbohydrates and fats.
Well, then I see people say things like, well, yeah, and then if you were to take and you were to replace the sour cream with Greek yogurt, it's like, yes, I understand that might be the better option. I do understand that. But if you put that Greek yogurt on that baked potato, okay, I'm going to put down like 2,000, 3,000 calories of that like it's nothing. If you make it just the baked potato, you get to like 800, 1,000 calories, and you're like, this is kind of rough. Yeah.
We went down a little bit of a rabbit hole with that one. Sorry.
No, it goes back into nutrition for the next one. For TNF, I am currently, after coming out of a bad rebound, gaining about 15 pounds, mostly fat. I am eating mostly clean foods, but my plan has a lot of chicken, white meat. Should I swap in more red meats?
Mostly has what? Sorry.
So he's going into chicken and white meat.
Okay, so
he's
what else?
more red meat?
What else is he eating around that? That's okay. Like I'll answer it from multiple perspectives. That way we don't have to do like the back and forth. All right. So a lot of times what happens is people are like, well, the white meat is like leaner, less calories, and they only think of it from that perspective. But I have found with a lot of people that I've worked with that there's in a lot of cases, I'm not saying every case, in a lot of cases, if as long as we're talking about not slathering it with a bunch of other stuff, making it like the most tasty thing in the world, if you eat a good like 6 ounces of steak versus 6 ounces of chicken, obviously in that moment, the 6 ounces of chicken can be less calories. So if you have to make that decision in that moment for whatever circumstance, it makes sense. But if we're talking about a relatively lean steak, it's not going to be that much more calories.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's where people get tripped up. They think, oh, red meat's more calories. If you have a lean steak and you're talking about 6 ounces versus 6 ounces of chicken, you might be dealing with an extra like 50 calories, 50 to at the max 100 calories if it's a lean cut. And then the actual nutrients that you're going to get alongside of that, you're gonna be feeling a little bit better. You're gonna maybe have like a little bit more motivation at whatever else you're doing. At least I've found that in my experience with others. If that's not the case for you though, adherence, okay? What's going to keep you able to adhere is the key. So if you try that out and you're like, you know what, it's not working particularly well for me, I'm not saying this is a hard set rule. This is just something that I've found with a lot of people. And that you could be the 20% that it doesn't work for, or the 15% or whatever percent of people that it's not working as well for. So don't feel like you have to do everything based off of one thing that you heard me say at one time.
Mhm.
It's never the case, okay? If you hear something and you're like, you know what, I get this all the time, like, I like your content, but I don't agree with you on this. I'm like, okay, cool. That's fine. That's fine. Like, I feel like people, they idolize or they put people's opinions up on such a pedestal that's like, I have to be 100% or nothing. There is not a single person in this room or creator that I have ever talked to that I have agreed with 100%. Now, I might not say that directly to their face. I might not be looking for confrontation with that person. I might respect the heck out of that person. But if I agree 100% with something somebody else is doing, I'm not thinking.
Mhm.
And it should be the same for you. If you agree 100% with everything I've ever done or said, you're not thinking. You're a robot.
Yeah, you're not critically thinking about any of the
No.
concepts that we talk about. Anecdotally, I also have struggled. I've done a cut on poultry and white meat. I've done a cut on exclusively red meat or a mix of the both. I feel better eating plenty of dietary fat, a little lower carbohydrate, like you talked about. I love ribeyes. I love New York strips. I like having those with maybe a potato, but I just love the way I feel from a nutrient density perspective. And objectively, what we can't argue with, it's not anecdote, is a lot of red meat is going to serve you better on a micronutrient level than poultry on the whole. So if satiety is the issue, try it. It might work, it might not. And it, like you said, has worked for many, many people.
It's trial and error. Again, it's great answer again.
A lot of figuring it out. Yeah. Sorry if you're not getting the answer.
Great answer.
And one thing that I'm going to say, because we talk about red meat a lot, obviously. Okay, probably the food that I think is the most underrated. So if you're like, you know what, I'm not really a red meat, not really an egg person, try and get some salmon in your diet.
Oh, for real.
Oh my gosh, like the difference that I feel when I'm getting salmon consistently in my diet, like if there's one thing that I could say that I've actually physically just noticed such a huge difference when I take it out versus when I have it in, salmon.
What about all that? I mean, everybody likes to pinpoint one thing. What about all the people who would say, but what about the mercury? What about the mercury?
So salmon actually doesn't have much mercury at all. So the way that mercury works is it bioaccumulates over time. So what you have is you have something eats something, eats something, eats something. So like maybe if there was a little bit of mercury in this, the thing that eats it gets all of the mercury from it. The thing that eats it gets all the mercury from it. But if this ate so much of this, got some mercury, this one's gonna have more mercury, this one's gonna have more mercury. So like tuna has like a lot of mercury in it because it's at the very top of the food chain. It's eaten so many things where it's bioaccumulated. Salmon, not that case. So because I've heard a lot of people say that, they're just mixing up salmon and tuna. Salmon you don't have to worry about mercury at all with salmon.
I actually did not know that. That's a good point. I know we're at the top of the 2 hours. Should we close it out with a good question?
There's like 13 minutes left, but there's one other question from the same person. While cutting, I am currently spacing out my meals every 3 hours or so. Should I keep doing this for 5 meals a day, or does it not matter?
It's the gray.
I have my opinions on this, but I'm gonna let Mark.
Just look at your schedule. Look at your own schedule day to day and see what's honestly most realistic for you. So if you eat at a certain time, and if it's probably maybe 4 or 5 hours ahead of time, it's not going to be that much of a big deal.
Yeah.
Are you meeting those caloric needs overall by the end of the day? Yes. Are you it doesn't really matter if it's so spaced out. It has to be exactly 3 hours and 15 seconds and XX milliseconds. Is it something that look at your schedule and see, okay, this is where I can put it in, this is where I can put it in, this is where I can put it in, and see if it's something that you can stay consistent with. This is the analysis paralysis again that people are just worrying so much about. It's like, bro, I'm starting to get confused about what's happening,
All right. So now that he's given that answer, I 100% agree. And let's say you have like all the freedom in the world, so you can do everything that you want to like make sure it's like perfectly optimized. The way that I always say it to people is the most important thing is that you're going less time rather than more time between protein feedings. So what's the time you're going to go the longest without protein? Overnight. So before you go to bed, when you get up, those are going to be your most important times to make sure that you're getting protein in your system, because that's the longest period of time that you could possibly run into any sort of catabolism. So breakfast at night before you go to bed. That's going to be your most important times for protein. And then the overall protein number is obviously the most important part. But at that point, as long as you like have a couple things here and there throughout, you're going to be missing out on no gains.
Yeah, the most important thing is I made a video on that got a lot of negative attention, or a lot of TNF, please comment on that. And I was waiting. Unfortunately, a study came out and supported that what is most important is total intake over frequency. It's just, if you have to get 200 grams a day and you eat 100 grams twice, or you eat 50 grams 4 times, it's a lot of times it's going to be mostly the same outcome. Now, are you trying to step on stage and win the Olympia or get your IFBB Pro card? Well, then maybe you should err on the side of Jill's advice. That's going to make more sense. But a lot of us are just trying to get better on the whole, not gain the 1% edge. And if you're asking a question like that, we're probably not trying to gain the 1% edge. We're probably just trying to get healthier and fitter. So stop trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. For me, 2 meals a day, massive protein feedings fits my schedule. It is not practical for me to try to do something else, and that would ruin my adherence. Well, that's where I fall.
And I've seen people get so worried about spacing things out that, like, what ends up happening is they worry so much about spacing it out that they end up missing the overall number.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's the most important part.
That's the big one.
Stepping over dummies to pick up pennies.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I could say this. It's like, okay, so your buddy punched you in the, I don't think in the dick. Okay, your buddy punched you in the dick, and then now you decide to fight him. You burned an extra 50 calories fighting. What are you going to do? Adjust your macronutrients down?
Yeah, so
What are you going to do? What are you
why
going
are
to
you worried
do?
about
You walked around the mall a few more times, so you burned a little bit more calories. You're going to have to adjust your macros.
Exactly 13 more grams of carbs.
That's like, don't stress so much about those things, and that's just gonna consume you way more than it needs to.
And that's the one big thing I've always said to anybody, like in my own personal life, ask me for advice on, hey dude, how'd you do it? How'd you do it? Keep freaking simple, dude. Like, do not overcomplicate it. It is already a challenging process. I mean, especially like for me, I started really late in life. I didn't start till I was 29. Like, you're not gonna change everything and become a bodybuilder like that. It's just not gonna happen. Can you monitor your calories? Can you hit your protein goals? Can you lift some weights? If you can do those 3 things, dude, don't worry about the rest. Like he said, if you get to that top 1%, you're going for your IFBB Pro card. Okay, cool. Hire TNF. He's got his link in bio. Just do the basics, man. Do the basics in life, because so many people, like 95% of people, aren't even doing that. You do that, you're gonna be fine.
People are going to think we're so uneducated, all these questions. We're like, figure it out.
Gray area, dude. Keep it simple.
Yeah.
Progress is never linear. You know what I mean? It's never going to be perfect, like a perfect slope up. There's going to be a couple edges and bumps, and that's just how it is. You're going to have to accept it that way. So, for example, I get 10,000 steps, every single day in the morning or whatever. But since we have a little bit of a schedule here, my steps are going to be a little bit behind. I'm not going to worry about it. Yeah, I'm not stressing.
It's gonna average out in the long run.
It's going to happen.
If you keep things consistent in life, like your exercise, your routine, your diet, I mean, cool. Keep it consistent. After 3 or 4 weeks, go, maybe I should adjust this here and there. But trying to get it down to the hourly on a day-to-day basis, it's gonna make it such an unenjoyable process.
Yeah, I look at things weekly. Step averages, caloric intake, training volume, every 7 days.
That's my hot take is actually related to that, and I think that so many people, everyone in this room has probably been asked the question, how do you stay motivated? I think that everybody in this room is unmotivated probably the majority of the time that they're doing this things they should be doing, and it's really what you're looking for is discipline.
Absolutely.
And so my hot take is basically like how to stay motivated. The people who are doing the things you want to be doing are probably also doing the things you don't want to be doing. Stop worrying about, like, you are not going to wake up every day and want to go to the gym every single day. You're not going to wake up every day and want to go to work every single day. It's about discipline, and everyone in this room has discipline. And honestly, there's probably varying levels of motivation right now around this table, but all of us are disciplined. So that's why it's not a hot take for probably the people in this room, but so many people out there are thinking that there's going to be something that's like, oh, I'm going to find the thing. Like, don't be passionate. I don't even think like find your passion is right. I think be passionate and go look at things, and you'll find the.
I'd say find a reason.
Yeah.
You got to have that discipline, at least for me myself. Find a reason in life for doing it.
It's got to be.
You have a reason you can lean on. You're good.
It's got to be bigger than you. And my theory is that every person is 75 to 100 instances away of doing the thing they need to do, whether they want to or not. The point where they want to say no and they say yes, they do that 100 times and they build discipline. And then it's so ingrained in them. I guarantee there's been 1,000 times that each of you have not wanted to go work out or go make the right choice in general, and you've done it anyway. That's where discipline is built. Action creates the confidence, and that creates the momentum, and that extrapolated over time creates the discipline. And that's what everybody's looking for. I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Humans wouldn't have gotten this far without discipline. I mean, how did, I think about these things all the time. How does Wi-Fi even exist? How does that even work?
Nobody
How
knows.
do people figure that out in the first place? Those people who work towards getting it to that point, obviously every day, there's probably plenty of points every day, or a lot of their days, they probably didn't feel like working. But how do you figure it out to get to the point of figuring out how Wi-Fi works? That's a lot of trial and error and a lot of failures and getting back up.
Without a doubt.
That's a lot of discipline put forth.
You guys should be fired up right now. You should be fired up right now.
Yeah, motivated.
Yeah. Super motivated, not disciplined, super motivated. What do we got?
Any last words or advice that you guys have for the viewers, and after we'll just wrap it up.
I'm curious if anybody's here from the beginning when we started the stream. If we've had anybody locked in for 2 full hours, that'd be crazy.
You have props.
We've had a good amount of people.
Really? That's awesome, man. Thank y'all for hanging out with us for 2 hours and
Yeah,
listening to
really
us
cool.
yap.
We're on a 40 plus pretty much the whole time on this.
Wow.
Listening to a big yap session.
Yeah, a bunch of
That's
yapping.
2 hours straight.
Okay, so
Yeah.
simple words, I say show up, do better next week. Aim to do better next week.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think especially with the age that we're dealing with the majority of the people that are viewing this, I think one of the themes that consistently we just kept coming back to over and over again is do the little things over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Like everybody's looking for this silver bullet, this magic thing that's gonna like just, as long as I can do this one thing, that's going to take me to this next level. As long as I do this one thing. Most of you guys have a good idea as to what to do. The question is, are you going to stay consistent with it? Are you actually going to be able to put it into practice day in, day out, years, even decades? And that is what's going to dictate whether you're actually able to become successful, whether it's in the gym, business, financial, all of these different things that we just touched on very briefly. But in the end, consistency is going to be the key in pretty well anything you do. And if you're looking for something that's just going to put you over the edge when you haven't put in the time,
It's Bax Shots.
it's this right here. This is the magic formula, and it is live right now.
Go get it. It's your silver bullet.
But yeah, accumulate your knowledge, and diversify as much as you can, but understand most of what you're going to do is going to be, in some sense or another, a little bit boring.
Mhm.
Like doing the same thing over and over again isn't necessarily going to be the most motivating or something that you're super fired up for every single time. But if you can put those things together, string together a bunch of bricks, and you have a wall.
Yep, without a doubt.
I say all the time, anything we're doing is either difficult, boring, or both.
Yep. That's very true. Very true. Baxter, anything you want to close on?
Buy Bax Shots, man.
He's like, what? How's the product doing?
Eric?
You got taken down on TikTok shop.
Oh, bro.
No way.
You got taken off TikTok shop?
Oh, because we weren't talking about it enough?
No, I think TikTok always gives hard time with it for like right in the beginning. So you have like submitted a few times.
Is the thing still going?
It's still going. Is there anything else, or
Do you have anything to say?
Buy Bax Shots.
He just cares about money, guys. But no, thanks for joining in. And seriously, if you don't follow any of these guys already, make sure you do, because every single one of them has something to offer that you're going to learn from.
Former Fat Guy Fitness. Former Fat Guy Fitness. Higher Up Wellness.
Bax 8 Carter.
TNF.
Mark with a C, MERC, Gabe Cruz.
Faith and Plates. Baxter Hosley.
Thanks for hanging with us, guys. Keep doing the obvious thing. Keep showing
Take
up.
TNF out.
TNF.
Oh, we didn't know what TNF